Hi, everybody. Turn with me to Genesis chapter 11. Let's start there. And we're going to talk about how God is green. And if you're joining us for the first time, we'd love that you're here and want you to feel right at home. And we'll be reading from the Bible from time to time this morning. So it's always nice to have one in front of you. And the page numbers to the scriptures we're going to look at will be on the screen above my head. And Genesis is just early in the story. So if that helps you kind of find where it is. Because God is green. And we're going to talk about that. Today's talk is called Towers and Tomatoes. So first we're going to talk about towers, and then we're going to talk about tomatoes. And I know a lot of you are like, well, I already know where you're going with that. But for the rest of you, we'll try to unpack that. That was a joke. Didn't work. We'll keep moving. We're rough going here. What I've discovered about you all is that some of you listen to the messages, which is always a bonus. Some of you take notes on the message so you can refer to it later. And some of you, I don't know if you're listening, and I don't know if you take notes because you draw. And then what you do is you take it upon yourself to show us the drawings that you made during the service. And it ranges from incredible to just flat out disturbing sometimes. And it generally involves me doing some version of, oh, dear God, I don't really look like that, do I? But one in particular was turned in the past 2 weeks, last week, that I found particularly unnerving, to say the least. But I just wanted what I particularly, like, oh, dear Lord, my legs aren't that long, are they? Look like, who's that? That one guy in the comic books, like, just like God went, you're done. Now you're done. But I love the caption because it actually, in the midst of the insanity, is quite spot on. And it's pointing to a globe, and it just says, let's fix this area right around here. And I thought, one more convert to the God who is green. But well said and well drawn, I guess. So there we have it. Now, let's talk about towers, and then let's talk about tomatoes. You ready to go? Okay. Genesis chapter 11. Now, the whole world, verse 1, had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Now, this passage is fascinating because they used to use stones, but then somebody invented the brick. Now, a stone occurs naturally in the midst of creation, but a brick is manufactured. A stone, you just go out and try to find stones. A brick, you intentionally create from various materials that you've brought together. Have you ever tried to build something with stones that you found? And have you ever tried to stack stones? Have you ever tried to take smooth rocks and actually make... It's quite difficult. When you find a stone, they aren't uniform in size or color or texture or shape or dimension. So a stone, and building something with a stone is quite difficult because you can't predict exactly what size they're going to be. It's hard to get them to stack on top of each other. But a brick, somebody invented a brick. A brick you can make faster. A brick can all be the same size. You can make a brick to the exact specifications that would be easiest to stack. This is a passage about innovation. This is a passage about progress. This is a passage about some people coming together and thinking, how could we do this better? Because trying to get stones on top of each other and to stick together is quite difficult. But look at these bricks. They can be stacked. You can make things faster, cheaper, quicker, higher, stronger if you have bricks. This is a passage about technology. Someone invented the brick. The brick was the iPhone of the ancient world. Bow down before the one you serve. Right there it is. So, 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet. This is a friend of mine, so I may be breaking the other commandment, the one about stealing. This passage is a passage about technology. And the question with technology, innovation's good. Forward movement's good. Progress is good. Creativity is good. Taking various things and putting them together, arranging them, designing them, architecting them, putting this there and that, that's good. That's what God intends for creation. I mean, that's the original Genesis 1. God puts these people in the midst of a beautiful garden and then says, do something with it. Go somewhere with it. Arrange, build. I mean, this is the God who creates the Crackus Drivewaeus Michiganus, so that the flower with its infinite varieties of design and detail. So when it comes to design, beauty, innovation, forward growth, progress, these are all things that God came up with. So the problem isn't the brick, but the brick raises all sorts of questions about what's it going to lead to. Because we have power. These people had power. We have ingenuity, innovation, creativity. We have been given profound power and will to work in the world. But all technology and all progress raises the question, will this be used in harmony with God to increase the shalom of the world, living with a full-bodied sense of reverence and awe for our Creator? So technology can go that. Or will this create a certain sort of arrogance, an independence from God, a self-inflated, we're gods now, look what we can do. We don't need any sort of divine higher power. We can do it on our own. See, technology always raises questions. What are they going to do with it? What are you going to do with your abilities and your talents and your energies and your desires? Are you going to channel them into really redemptive, beautiful purposes? Or are they going to pull you off track and take you down all sorts of side roads? That's the question. And that's the question that looms here in this passage. What are they going to do with the brick? Verse 4, then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth. Their response to the brick is, let's make a city. In that city, let's have a tower. And in that tower, let's have a tower that goes to the heavens. And so then, through all of this building, the point is that we will make a name for ourselves. We'll be gods. We'll take over. We don't need any sort of, we'll be in charge. Now, in the ancient world, they had what's called a three-tiered view of reality. A three-tiered view. In the ancient world, prior to telescopes and airplanes, they believed that up above was the heavens. Like if you went kind of past those clouds, you would get to like the gods. They'd be there. You might find, clouds and harps and white robes and really long buffet and that kind of thing would be right up there. And then this realm was earth, where we are. And then they believed that there was a third realm underneath the soil, which they called the pit or Sheol or the depths or the grave. Because it seemed that rain comes from the clouds, and rain is what causes this crop to grow, and the crop is what feeds me. So obviously the divine, the gods, are somewhere up there. The sun, which shines on things, which makes them grow, which feeds me, obviously is up. So obviously the gods, or the source of things, is up, and then there's this realm, and then there's a realm below this. So in the Bible, when you read that up and down language, that comes from an ancient view. Now, somebody invented a telescope, and then somebody invented a spaceship, and went up there and realized there's just nothing but stars. And so we realize, even through our own technology, that was how they comprehended things. And so in this passage, let's make a tower that'll go up to the heavens. What happens? This brick begins to change them. They want to be gods. Let's make a name for. It's all about them. It's all about us. You can see this tension throughout the Scriptures. Hold your place in Genesis. Please turn with me to Psalm chapter 20. You can see this juxtaposition between people who their technology has led them to greater and greater dependence on God and reverence and worship and awe. and those who their technology and their progress has led them to be more selfish, more self-centered, less sensitive to what they're doing to the world around them. Psalm 20, another passage with strong kind of technological undercurrent. Psalm 20, verse 7, some trust in chariots. Now, the chariot was the tank of the ancient world. I mean, you stand on this thing with wheels and it gets pulled and you control these horses. I mean, a chariot, that was something right there. And they often were very expensive and had all sorts of protection around them. I mean, a chariot, that was the tank of the... Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. And so the psalmist just says there are some who their progress and their accumulation of things has led them to be dependent on their stuff. And so for them there is no higher being, no transcendent power. It's just all the stuff they've created. But there are others who have maintained a sense of innocence, a sense of dependence, a sense of mystery to creation, a sense of reliance on a God who's greater than what anything we could create. Now turn back to Genesis. See, the question about the brick is a question not just about what they do to the brick. It's what the brick does to them. See, the story isn't just they use the brick to try and make a tower. The question is what the brick has done to them. It's made them think it's all about them. Let's make a name for ourselves. The question isn't just what they do with the brick. It's what the brick does to them. And there's actually a great deal of humor in this passage. Notice verse 5. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that they were building. Now, I never understood that this is old, ancient world funny, but the tower that they're building a tower so it will reach to what? The heavens. The God who's in the heavens has to come down to do what? Ooh, big tower. This passage is genius. I mean, they would have laughed very hard at this, I assume. We're like, ooh. Somebody will explain it to you later. But basically the passage is all about these people who are like, we're going to build something so big. And what the writer does is have the God who's in the heavens going, I can't see it. I'm going to have to go down there and look around, and maybe then I'll find it. So your tower is very impressive. It's all relative to the size of your tower. Now, I think that was brilliant. I'm not sure. So this passage is fascinating. It's a passage about technology. It's a passage about what we're going to do with our progress and our innovation. And the writer clearly has an opinion. I would argue the writer is trying to put all of this in proper perspective. That there is a God who made everything, who is the source, who is the ruler, who is the divine lawgiver, who is the architect of all of this, and that their accomplishments are petty in the sight of the kind of God who could give orders to the dawn, and a God who let the wild donkey go free. There's like this almost juxtaposition of the self-centered arrogance of the human being and then the greatness of a God who says, what, a tower to the heavens? Apparently I can't see it. I'm going to have to come down there and look around. Now, our progress, our technology, our innovation, as great as it is, has a downside. It has a dark side. It is possible for all of the unbelievable innovation that we enjoy to actually separate us from some very key things. And so today I want to talk about degrees of separation. Eventually we'll get to the degrees of separation with a tomato. But first, excuse me while I cough up a lung. Oh, look at this. Water placed there conveniently. Now I feel great. With a nod to Napoleon Dynamite. Now, what can happen is that our innovation and technology cuts us off from the cost of things. Let me show you a map of the world. Now, some of the best... How many of you like sushi? We have some sushi fans? Beautiful. Now, sushi. Some of the best tuna for sushi is caught off the east coast of the United States of America, to the right of the mint green blob known as home. Now, some of the best tuna is caught right off the coast of Massachusetts. Sushi tuna is incredibly, it's very, very distinct what they want in order to make the sushi. It's only a certain kind of tuna. That tuna grows well off the coast of the eastern seaboard of the United States. Now, fishermen catch that tuna and they put it into a refrigerated compartment on their boat. The boat then goes into harbor where there is a refrigerated truck waiting for that fish. The fish is then placed on the truck, and the fish is taken by truck to JFK Airport in New York City. It's then loaded into a refrigerated compartment on a plane, which then flies the tuna to Tsujika, which is the largest fish market in the world in Tokyo. It's then loaded onto a truck off of the airplane and driven to the largest fish market in the world in Tokyo. There are then brokers from all over the world who are going through, the last figure I saw was either 2 or 3 million pounds of fish a day go through Tsujika. So it's absolutely giant market. They go through these brokers, and they are people who buy on behalf of restaurants. These brokers will look through the tuna and pick, because they're looking for the best tuna for the restaurants they represent to serve as sushi. They will then pick one out. There are brokers at the market who will pick the tuna, buy it. It will be put on a refrigerated truck. That truck will drive back to the airport at Tokyo, where it's loaded on an airplane in a refrigerated compartment. That plane then flies to JFK Airport in New York City, where it is then loaded onto a refrigerated truck. That refrigerated truck drives it into the city of Manhattan, where it is delivered to a restaurant and then served in the finest sushi restaurant in Manhattan with the word fresh attached to it. That is one tired tuna. So in restaurants in Manhattan, the freshness of the sushi is what allows you to sell it at the highest price. And some of you who have eaten really expensive sushi, I mean, the prices can be unbelievable. And so when you sit at that table in Manhattan and they serve you fresh sushi, you have no idea where that sushi has been, do you? All you know is it's expensive, it's fresh, it's exhausted, and it tastes great. Our innovation, our technology, our unbelievable ingenuity in manipulating physical creation makes it such that we can eat sushi in Manhattan that has been around the world in the past 48 hours. Our technology can isolate us from the true cost of things. What did that sushi cost? Well, let's say it cost $35. Yeah, but it also cost some gas. It cost some carbon dioxide emissions. So when we talk about cost, there's the cost, like what it cost us, but then there's the cost of that sushi. Does that make sense? There's the cost, but then there's the cost. Our technology isolates us from the true cost. Is that kid okay? Poor kid. Our technology isolates us from the cost and then the cost of things. I would argue that not only can we be isolated from the cost, we can be isolated from the consequences of our progress. In 2005, Roger Gottlieb reports this. In 2005, a study of the umbilical cord blood of 10 randomly chosen newborns in the United States was tested for toxic chemicals. A total of 287 toxic chemicals were found, with the average for each individual infant being 200. Nearly 3/4 of the chemicals were known carcinogens, and the rest were identified as threatening the nervous, endocrine, and immune systems. Our technology, our innovation, the things that we have made, have serious consequences for human life. Our care of the earth is a sanctity of life issue. When they randomly test the umbilical cord blood and they find at least 200 toxic chemicals in newborns' blood, that is a sanctity of life issue. Would you agree? How did those get there? Because we haven't taken good care of the earth. And it's literally threatening human life. Our technology, our innovation is possible for us to isolate us from the true cost of things, but also to isolate us from the consequence of things. And I would argue at the most basic everyday level that our innovation can isolate us from our environment, from simply the dirt and sticks and stones and trees and branches and leaves and streams of everyday life. My wife and I were going to an appointment at an office building about a week and a half ago. And we got there a couple minutes early, so we were just sitting in the car talking for a minute before we went into this appointment. A woman came out of the building, the office building that we were about to go into. She came out of the building, walked across the parking lot, and opened up her car, pulled out a sweater. And it was like 95 degrees or something. It was one of those hot days, hot and humid. And then she takes her sweater and goes back towards the office building. At this point, we were realizing it was time to go inside, so we got out of our car, and we're walking towards the door, and so I hold the door for her, and as she walks in, I just said to her, "Excuse me, but did you go out and get your sweater because it's too cold in here?" And she said, "Yeah, I did. There's a guy in a suit on our floor, and so the air conditioning is on turbo, and I get really cold." And so then we walked in together talking about how cold it is in there as she put her sweater on a 95-degree day, which any one of us would have done if it's very cold. But later I was thinking, okay, let me get this straight. In Michigan, it's crazy cold during the winter, correct? Not just cold, crazy cold, okay? And by the way, I'm thinking about starting a T-shirt line that says, "Michigan isn't for sissies." .com. Now, so it's cold. It's crazy cold. I mean, there are some Sundays when we gather here and it's like dark in the morning, and that ain't right. And so we long for spring because spring might lead to summer. And we're people of faith, and we prove that every year because we say, no, summer's going to come, and then we'll break the ice and we'll swim. And so what we do in the winter, because we have to heat our homes because it's so crazy cold that you freeze if you don't. So we seal our windows up, and we pay lots of money to make sure that the heat gets kept in our homes. We don't want skyrocketing bills, and we don't want to freeze. Then, finally, spring comes, and summer comes, and it's like, yes. And you know what we do? We seal up our windows. We make sure there's no way for air to get out. And then we run our air not through machines that make the air warmer, but we run our air through machines that make the air cooler. So for a good chunk of the year, we can't wait for summer to hit so that we can reseal the windows and put our air through a different kind of machine. And then on a 95-degree day, we do what any of us would have done. It's too cold indoors, so we get a sweater. Our technology can isolate us from our environment. Would you agree? Anybody from outside would say, that seems like a lot of energy that's being expended. Is there any way to do this better? Other countries, of course, where they can't afford air conditioning, they go for months on end with 100, 110 degrees. But we will say like, oh my goodness, it's 78, I'm burning up. We are fascinating creatures. And then I would argue that not only does our technology isolate us, it can separate us from our environment, from the consequence, from the cost. But it can easily isolate us from the source. In February, I can go in to the local supermarket and I can buy tomatoes. Sometimes they're packaged in those plastic containers of 4. Sometimes they're in a plastic bag. Either Roma tomatoes or beefsteak tomatoes. Tomato with an attitude. The big-time wrestler of tomatoes, beefsteak. And so I can go in and I can purchase these tomatoes. Middle of February, snowstorm, 10 degrees. It's a tundra out there. I can go in and purchase fresh tomatoes. Where was it grown? I don't know. Who grew it? I don't know. How did it get here? I don't know. Is it even a tomato? I don't know. It looks like a tomato. It acts like a tomato, but it could be genetically engineered licorice or I don't know. It tastes like a tomato. Could have been made. So we go in the middle of February, and there are all of these fruits and vegetables, which I dare say aren't in season, and yet they're there. We don't know where they were grown. We don't know who. Was the person paid an adequate wage? Can they afford to send their kids to school? How many hours a day are they required to work? Do they get any holiday time? Do they even get the Sabbath, a day of rest? Do they have health insurance? I mean, we don't know anything. All we know is I got my tomatoes, and I get out of there. Now, last week, my wife Kristen purchased this tomato at the farmer's market. Farmer's market. Give it out. Come on now. Now, the farmer's market, the farmer who grew this tomato handed it to my wife. She conversed with him. Now, this tomato was grown in soil very close to where we live. The same sun that shines on me shined on this tomato. The same rain that we experienced the past couple of months fell on this tomato. It didn't travel very far from where it was, where it grew from the earth to where it will be consumed with some fresh salsa. So there is something about eating locally grown that I'm far more connected to this. I'm far more aware of the provision that is food and the source of that food, which is the God who made everything. And so there are far less degrees of separation between the February tomato and the tomato purchased at the farmer's market from the actual person who put the seed into the soil, who pulled the tomato from the vine, who put it in the basket and then drove it a couple miles to the market where we took it and then walked home and will consume it probably later today. And then we recently got one of those earth boxes for our deck and are planting our own tomatoes. Now, this little fella isn't going to make it. I pulled him off this morning. He just came to a premature end for the purposes of this sermon. But he's got all sorts of brothers and sisters, and they are going to make it. And so we started with this earth box. I don't know if you've seen those, but it's basically just this box. You fill it with soil, and then there's like a little thing where you put water in, you put some seeds, and then it just like goes crazy like late spring, early summer. And by now we've got these like literally vines 3-4 feet high. They have to have these wood supports to them. And in no time, we're going to have lots and lots and lots of tomatoes, which is fine by me. So it started as dirt, a little water, a seed, and now we are days or weeks away from lots and lots of tomatoes that come out of nowhere. And so what was just this pile of dirt and a little water and a seed is soon going to be how our family eats. And eating is intimately connected with survival, as we all know. I mean, if you have we like to use the phrase, we grow our own. I don't know, some of you might enjoy that later. But when you grow your own, you are connected with the mystery that is food. You're connected with the weather, water, soil. You're connected with how it's just something buried in the ground, and then all of a sudden something springs up that tastes unbelievably good. And this tomato tastes better than the February tomato, and these tomatoes will taste even better. They'll do something to us. So I would argue in the world of tomatoes there are these degrees of separation. And I would argue the closer and closer you are to the source of the tomato, the more it does something to your soul. The farther and farther you are away, the more disconnected we are from the source of things and the mystery of things and the God who brings things into existence, seemingly out of nothing, dirt and water and seeds. There are these degrees of separation. And the less and less degrees of separation they are, the more holy life becomes, the more sacred everyday rituals are, and the more you're aware of the mystery that is life. So these degrees of separation and what our technology affords us, it actually works backwards in regards to our own soul and our own posture towards, wow, God, what is this world that you've created in such a way that it can actually take care of us? That something can literally spring from what appears to be nothing. Turn with me to Matthew chapter 6. Let's explore this in 3 different ways. So let's explore this in 3 different ways, and then maybe 2 more thoughts of application, and then another idea, and then we'll be done. Matthew chapter 6. I want to talk 3 different ideas. Eat, ride, hang. Eat, ride, hang. Let's talk about eat first. How can you and I live in such a way that we are cutting down on the degrees of separation? Because our own connection with the God who made everything is deeply intertwined with the amount of degrees of separation we have with the world around us, whether it's food or all sorts of other things. Now, Matthew chapter 6, Jesus is teaching his disciples how to pray. And he says something that I assume for his first audience had serious economic implications. He's teaching them how to pray. Verse 9 of Matthew chapter 6. This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Now, for Jesus' first audience, I would assume that many of them were in a very rough economic situation. Many of them were being taxed to death. Many of them were hungry. There's a reason why they follow him around a lake, because of his rumors about turning bread and fish into more bread and fish. So I assume for some of them, give us today our daily bread was about, God, I'm starving here and I can't feed my family, which was the economic collapse of Jesus' world. But perhaps we could begin to explore it. Maybe the prayer, give us today our daily bread, for our modern world is, God, please keep me connected with the source of all things. Please keep me as close as possible to that humble, reverent feeling that comes from knowing where my food really does come from. Because in my world, I can march in February, throw down a few dollars, and buy tomatoes, and I have no idea who grew it or where it came from or how far it's traveled. I have the power to walk in, throw down some money, take it, and eat. And I can do that all without any thought to God. I am insulated from how dependent I am on the earth to provide my sustenance. Maybe give us this day our daily bread is a prayer. It's a mantra for a follower of Christ. God, keep me aware of the gift that is life and the mystery that comes from being tuned in to how you actually sustain us. If every family in America were to eat one homegrown meal, locally grown meal this week, one locally grown meal would save 800 million barrels of oil. The average food that we eat from pasture to plate travels 1,200 miles. The average food you buy in the supermarket or you go to a restaurant and buy has traveled 1,200 miles to get to your plate. So just eating one locally grown meal is unbelievable how much consumption that saves. And I would argue it does something to you. So those of you who do eat locally, you're, by the way, called localvores. And those of you localvores, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It connects you in ways. When you've actually met the people who grew your food, it connects you with economic issues. It connects you with political issues. It connects you with issues of the soil and environment. It connects you with society and social fabric, with families, with family-run business. It deeply, deeply changes the way you view everything. Perhaps Jesus' prayer, give us our daily bread. Perhaps it becomes a plea. God, give me my daily bread in a way that I can stay aware of just how desperately I need you. Otherwise, my world, I'll start building towers, and my technology will separate me from the source of things, and I will end up using the brick in all sorts of ways that it will end up using me. Try this with your family. Try this with your friends. Try it. Let's eat a locally grown meal and see what it does. Eat. Secondly, ride. Turn with me to Romans chapter 1. Romans chapter 1. I decided to make a vow that I would ask myself every time I was about to drive somewhere, is it possible to walk this? And if it's not possible to walk to this thing, is it possible to ride my bike to this thing? And so I've been practicing this for a while now, and it's absolutely revolutionized my life in Grand Rapids. So think through the places that you drive and start thinking about some of those distances. The first thing, there are all sorts of details that you miss when you drive. It's hard to consider the lilies at 70 miles an hour. And it's It's hard to look at the birds behind glass that's sealed up. And when you do this, just ask yourself, is there any route, is there any place I'm going? Try this week. Try one place that you always drive. Try either walking or biking. Now, if you're instantly going, whoa, that would take so much time. Well, how much time do you spend at the health club? So let's add how much time you spend at the health club on a walking machine. Okay, and then add to that how long it takes you to drive there and drive back. So take that total number and then divide by half and realize, could I walk it in that distance? We spend an unbelievable amount of time in cars and then exercising because we just haven't had any movement. And I guarantee some of you could walk it in less time. It's always fun, of course, to show up somewhere and have everybody like, where's your car? No way. My friends now are used to this. You walked here, didn't you? Mm-hmm. I did. But that must have taken like an hour. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did. And I feel great. There are things that you can only notice. There are sections I've driven by for 10 years of Grand Rapids that walking by them, oh, no way, I never knew this was here. I've only driven by it for 10 years. There are people that you run into. There are things that happen that can only happen when you're on your feet. There are things that only... And I would guarantee you do have the time. It's just we have come to think of time in all sorts of convoluted sorts of ways. My wife and I were in Rome a couple of years ago on a Sunday, and they had a no-drive day. And only taxis could operate in the city of Rome. And we're like, what is this? And they said, well, on a regular basis, we just have a no-drive day because everybody then walks, which they kind of do anyway, but it's just better for the earth that way. A whole city that acknowledges it's good to give the earth a break from driving every once in a while. Latest stat I've come across, if you were to not drive your car for 2 days this week, that you were going to drive your car, that would be saving 1,590 pounds of carbon dioxide emissions. Just that one gesture. Just, could I walk this? Or could I ride this? It has that kind of impact. Now imagine a bunch of people start doing that. It changes everything. Many people go out to a garage, get into a car, windows up, air conditioning on, garage door up, drive to parking garage, get out into building, windows sealed, air conditioned, back out into car, air conditioned, windows up, drive back to home, door up, in, door down, into air conditioned home, and then say things like, God just seems far. How is that possible? Well, notice what it says in Romans chapter 1. And I find this fascinating because the writer juxtaposes clear with invisible, which is it's either bad writing or it's brilliant wisdom. Notice verse 20. For since the creation, Romans 1:20, for since the creation of God, the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen. So these things that are invisible are clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. I will often meet people who, because of a bad religious experience or for whatever reason, will talk about being far from God. We'll talk about, I just don't know if I believe, I just don't know if I... And what disturbs me is how often their answer to this is either theological, philosophical, or intellectual. If you could just prove to me this or that. Or they have some warped theological system, and you'll just show me how this particular construct or this particular... And I wonder sometimes, like, you know what? I understand that you feel far from God, and I have a deep, profound theological response to that. Please just park your car. Just park it. Just put down your remote control and back away from the TV. Just go outside. Let's start there. Not to be simplistic, but we live in these worlds where we are isolated, insulated, and we run our air through machines and then talk about how God seems far. Well, of course. I mean, when was the last time you spent significant time simply looking up at the stars? When was the last time you walked outside more than 10 minutes? When was the last time you came across something in nature and had the time to actually stand there and study it or observe it? No wonder we have a culture that's deeply lost and wondering if there even is a God. We can get perfect tomatoes in February. There's a connection. We have so many degrees of separation between us and the physical cosmos, and then we wonder why. Why? And Jesus says things like, "Give us this day our daily bread." We don't even know where our daily bread came from. No wonder God feels far. Central to the life of a disciple for thousands of years has been this awareness that God is our source, and so we need to be as close as possible to keep ourselves tuned in to the source. It's our strength. It's where a proper, humble understanding of the world is, and it's the only hope we have for managing this unbelievable technology that we have at our fingertips. We have more communication devices than ever, and it appears as though more people are lonelier than ever. I mean, there is a question. It's not what we're going to do to the brick. What is the brick going to do for us? And then we do another fascinating thing. In the wintertime, we run our air through machines to make our air warmer. But then, when we have clothes that are dirty, we wash them, but then we need to dry them. So we plug another device in called a dryer, which heats up our clothes to get the moisture out. So we have one machine that's putting moisture into things. At the same time, another machine is trying to take moisture out. But when you hang your clothes on a drying line, you can unplug both devices. Score! And the moisture from the clothes drying fills the room. So we have machines that are like canceling each other out. And I would argue the dominant question with any appliance is simply, what happens when I unplug this? Is there some way in which this progress, which we celebrate, in which this iPhone, which we really celebrate, in which these wonderful inventions, is there any way that this has provided degrees of separation that are simply unnecessary? One thing to me that as my family and I have explored this, that a little less consumption is always connected with a little more connection. You will be astounded as you begin to ask these questions about the degrees of separation, whether it's a tomato, whether it's air, whether it's food, whatever it is. You'll be astounded how often a little less consumption is always connected with a little more connection. They are deeply related. You decide, I'm going to park my car this day. You will come home at the end of the day on your feet with a new perspective. I met a guy after the first service who decided 2 years ago to try and walk, and he's now, or ride his bike. And everybody told him you can't do it through the winter. And he's gone through his second winter riding his bike everywhere. I was like, "Are you okay, dude?" "Yeah, man, I feel great." Yeah, there are people around here who do not use a car in Michigan year-round, and they're fine. This is not weird or strange. This is people who have come to understand that a little less consumption is generally related to a little more connection. And then a second thing, to me, and a concept that has really, really helped my family, is simply degrees of separation. In what ways can I cut down on the degrees of separation between me and fresh air, food source, the cost of things, not just the cost of the sushi, but the cost of the sushi. Every way that you can cut down on degrees of separation, I would argue, is every step closer you're taking to God. These are deep, because everything is spiritual. These are deeply spiritual issues. One final thought. Turn with me to Romans chapter, oh my word, is it 12:25? No way. I've just been going like crazy. It's probably time to wrap it up. There's going to be like total mutiny down the hall with the kids. Okay, so I apologize to all of you. Please apologize to the kids' leaders on behalf of me so that you can face them, not me. You could be like an atoning sacrifice for all that. Let me say a quick prayer and then we'll wrap this up. Dear God, help us to think intelligently about this and honestly, and to examine our lives, to ask better questions about our world, the degrees of separation, and what it means to move towards you. We thank you that you're green,